come. I've been excited about being here ever since I found out that I was going to come and hope that I might see some people that I remember from the old neighborhood. Pat, is that Pat?
Yes.
Yes, it's so nice to see you.
And I was feeling as mutual.
And I was hoping I might see some of my nieces and nephews. I'm not sure I would recognize you after all these years. Is that Pat? Is that Janet?
Right here.
Janet. Yes.
Yes.
And Nancy? Is that Nancy? How nice. You were all so much help to me in the store in those days. I think it was Janet that earned her class trip money working for me. And anyway, you were, thank you very much for all your help.
My brother worked for you also, Donald.
Donald. Wow.
And you fired me.
Worse here, I think. Yeah. Makes me nervous.
Don't be nervous.
But it's nice that you're the first group because you can correct me before you leave if I'm wrong. My name is Ruth Clark, and I came here to the Calais Cemetery in 1971. And I've been asked to come today to talk to you about my life and also about how the people in Calais got their groceries in the mid-20th century. I was born in Calais on April 17th in 1910, and I lived in a little house on Germain Street. It was very close to it was below Washington Street, but very close to the corner of Washington Street. And I honestly don't remember what was between my house and Washington Street before 1920. In 1920, my father, Willis Clark, who was also buried here, built a store on that corner. And so the store was on the corner, but it was on Washington Street, and our house was right behind the store. And after that store was built in 1920, that was pretty much my life. I was 10 years old, and I worked in that store from the time I was 10 years old until I was 61 when I died of breast cancer. Now, the store was known, my father built the store, and the store was known as Clark's Store, or sometimes as Clark's Food Store. But by 1960, I had worked. You must be a Beckett. I was hoping I might see some Becketts tonight.
There you are.
But by 1960, I had run the store alone for so long that many people just called it Ruth's store. At that time, we sold groceries. And at that time, there were lots of small grocery stores in Calais. In fact, on Washington Street alone, there were 4 or 5 grocery stores between South Street and North Street. Now, if you were to start at South Street and walk along Washington Street, the first store you would have seen was Eddie Boyd's, which was on the corner. And after that, you would have come to Ernie Jacobs' store, which was around Swan Street. And if you kept walking, you would come to Heyman's store. Now, Heyman's store was right across Germain Street from my store. And across Washington Street from Heyman's store was an A&P. So you see how many grocery stores in such a small area? Now, Heyman's later became Chick's, and some of you may remember Chick's. Both Heyman's and Chick's sold beer, but I refused to sell beer in my store. Now, they weren't the only small grocery stores in Calais, because on Union Street there was Lund's. On Price Street, Ted Donovan had a store. Gibson's had a store on North Street. On Knight's Corner, there was another, that was Don Donovan's store. And of course, in Milltown, there was Hamilton's. So you see all these grocery stores. But in those days, people didn't want to carry their groceries a long ways. They didn't have cars, and they wanted to get their groceries home, and didn't want to carry them far. And those stores provided service to their customers. We provided service. If a customer came into our store with a list, we would take that list. Either I or one of my helpers, often my nieces and nephews, would go and get the groceries off the shelf, put them on the counter, and bag them for the customer. The customer could just wait until it was all done for them. So in 1938, there was a supermarket. It was down at the end of Main Street, down towards the Ferry Point Bridge. Now that was a long ways for people in my neighborhood to go to get their groceries. Eventually, most of the families had a car, but often that one car that they had was used by the man in the house to get to work. So the women would not want to carry their groceries all that distance to get home. So they still came. They liked the way we did business. They liked our service. They liked the way we did it. So we kept our customers. We provided all kinds of, every grocery you could need. We had bread and milk and canned goods and all of the staples, the flour, the sugar, the lard, the salt, all of the things that anybody would need to feed their family. As I said, my father, Willis Clark, is the one who built the store. But it was my brother, Lewis Clark, who's buried here. This is his stone, yes. You're right, he's buried over there.
One of these, right? That one over there.
Yeah.
That's my mother.
I think,
That's my
no,
father.
this is father is my father. Yeah, this
that's
is my
it.
father, Willis.
Yeah.
And so Lewis
That's Lewis, the
is
new
nothing over there. And Lewis and my father ran the store until 1943 when my brother Lewis died. And my father died just a year later in 1944. I was 34 years old, and I took over running the store at that time with the help of I had a lot of loyal customers, and I was grateful to each and every one of those customers. If they were short of cash, I extended them credit, and they appreciated it, and no one had to know. We took care of one another. But on the other hand, I would not be very happy if I saw one of my customers coming out of payment with milk or bread, because they knew very well that all they had to do if they needed something was knock on my door or give me a call, and I would open the store and give them what they needed. As time went by, it got harder and harder to make a living in the store. It didn't help when there was another supermarket opened on Washington Street. This one was an IGA. All of the small stores suffered from that, and we had carried a less and less variety of food. But we would carry milk and bread and hot dogs and maybe some hamburger, the kinds of things that you would send a kid out to get if you ran out at the house. But we were on hard times. In my neighborhood, I remember there were two families just around my block, the Burts and the Robs, and between them they had 16 children. And I loved to have the kids come into the store. They would come in to buy potato chips and soda pop, and they loved the penny candy.
Teresa Robb sends her regards.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
My regards to that we carried candy cigarettes and bazooka bubble gum. We had fireballs, and Mary Janes were a very popular item, and we had these little pies that came with a tiny tin spoon that you could eat to help you so you could eat it. And the children would come in, and they might take a very long time to make their decisions, but if they were careful, they could fill a bag for a nickel. And I always tried to carry a good variety because each child had his own favorite penny candy. Do you remember what your favorite penny candy was?
Bit of honey.
Still is, then. There was another young fellow that I remember. I was kind of impressed by this young fella. He was kind of small for his age, and when he was about 12 years old, he used to come into the store in the middle of the week, and he never had any money. But on Saturdays, he came into the store, and he had a bag full of money because he had a paper route, and he had collected his money. So I extended credit to that young fella. He was given credit, so he had $1 a week to spend, and he always came in on Saturday when he got his paper money and paid up his bill. And I'm kind of wondering if any of you know what happened to that young fella. His name was Alan Churchill.
I didn't know that story.
I have some penny candy for you. I'd love to sell you tonight if you have a penny. Is anyone interested?
In what? Penny candy.
I'll sell you some candy for a penny.
Oh, I don't have
And
any
if you
pennies.
don't have a penny, you might find one over there.
How about my line of credit?
I don't know you well enough. Aha!
We're on
Come.
credit.
I'd love to sell you some. You just have to pick out what you want.
You gave me the small money. Oh, I went to the
There's your chance, Lola.
on the right way.
Are you Rob?
Thank you. Would you guys like some?
Nobody else?
Yes, I have a penny. About it,
You choose from me.
a bit of penny.
Oh, you get to eat today, Sarah.
I couldn't.
It was gone.
I know, it went too. You have babysat. Danny. David. What's the next name?
Okay, what would you want?
Go get him on. That's on there. I lucked out. Well, I at first, but I babysat for Jean and Bunny for Funny. Now, which one is it? You said Teresa? How old was she? Yeah, she might have been one of the ones too. I know which line. I know Janice was the oldest, and Danny. And then I don't know Veronica or David.
I gotta go get married again.
I bet it would be.
You did a very good job.
I don't have any.
Oh, God. We gotta have that to it just as good, wasn't it?
Janice, Danny,
I'm going to have to close
and
the
Veronica.
door. I'm sorry, but I don't have
Hey, Richie.